Welcome back to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. We're talking about 5G. We've been listening to a lot of examples of some fantastic capability that 5G is enabling. And let's bring it over to Stephen over at Spirent and tell us about what Spirent is and how do you all fit into this ecosystem and how you're enabling 5G for these very important missions.
Absolutely, Luke. And Spirent Communications, we're a leading global provider in the testing and assurance solutions for the communication industry. And we've been at the forefront of 5G from its earliest days of inception. Today, we're engaged with over 150 customers and networks worldwide, right across that ecosystem. And where we've been focusing is really on providing the industry with, I would say, cutting edge network emulators or simulators which replicate the 5G network. And this allows them to accelerate their research. The other side that we focus on is really traffic generators and automation technologies, which is really used to stimulate the testing and accelerate the launch of 5G solutions and networks worldwide. I did mention we have over 150 plus engagements today, and this is ranging from the radio equipment and handset manufacturers who are developing the new antenna systems to utilize the new radio frequencies, whether they're in the mid to low bands or the new millimeter wave ranges, right through to the network equipment manufacturers today who are developing the new cloud-hosted and virtualized core networks, which are going to transform how our networks are going to actually differentiate and offer secure services. And we're working closely with the carrier community who are rolling out 5G at the moment and need the support and safely turning up the new cell sites and making sure they actually are going to deliver on some of these performance requirements. Now, from I suppose, a defense and military perspective, we've been also working heavily on major research initiatives with the defense sector and also with the space sector at the moment. And in these engagements, we're providing software emulated replicas of the 5G network called digital twins. And these digital twins provide a flexible environment to basically prototype and wargame the future of what a 5G network could deliver. And it's pretty exciting stuff, as we've heard from the distinguished panel earlier on. We're researching areas that are probably far ahead of the commercial sector. With the defense sector, it's things like augmented reality for enhanced training of our soldiers, combat telemedicine using augmented reality, connected autonomous vehicles, not just on the ground, but in aerial environments as well. So it's pretty exciting stuff where the future of 5G and the defense sector is going. And I would say today it's cutting edge.
It sounds super impressive. I've never heard the term digital twins. That's very impressive. And I'm happy to hear that you all are doing some very advanced capabilities enabling this technology. Well, we always like to talk about specific programs. I'm going to throw it up to you, Lieutenant Colonel, and ask you to give us an example. You talked about the 5G living labs and the digital futures. Tell us about a specific program that you guys are rolling out. Maybe it's in prototype pilot, maybe you've already implemented it, that you'd like to highlight.
As I mentioned, 3 weeks ago, we turned on the 5G Living Lab that we work in collaboration with Verizon. It's not just about cellular coverage. While that's great, that's a secondary benefit. It's really about the connectivity provided for so many capabilities across the base. So we currently have autonomous shuttles on the base that are ready to pilot, where we're going to do data export of the terabytes of data that are collected from these sensors on the vehicle throughout the day. We're doing energy communications, where we're going to extend a point of presence of a closed network to another location on a base for a solar field, so that we can have logical control over the solar fields. It's really about using telecommunications and cellular connectivity as a transport mechanism across the base. We're doing drones. The future of drones it goes away from RF signals and goes into cellular control. And so we're piloting that as well. And finally, the digital fortress. Robert Costello is on the call here from Customs and Border Protection. We have a great partnership or relationship with CBP, where we have a memorandum of understanding to work on security efforts together. as he mentioned earlier, surveillance towers that are leveraging 4G LTE on the border today. We have and learned through our relationship with CBP about that capability, and we've been rolling out that same capability on military bases in the region. So in our 5G living lab, we're actually doing these surveillance towers that are a sensor suite. They leverage artificial intelligence in the form of machine learning and computer vision. They do computing on the edge so that you can really reduce the bandwidth requirements that you have at the devices so that you can leverage cellular technology device to device and then back into the cloud. So we're very excited about these capabilities. They're lined up for Miramar here in San Diego to pilot. We have many of them on the base already and are ready to turn on. Finally, I'd like to say thank you to Congress. Congress in 2020 appropriations bill provided $5 million for this piloting. You know, as you mentioned earlier, the carriers and specifically for us, Verizon has leaned in to this collaboration, this collaborative partnership. We call it a collaborative market. They've leaned in and at no cost to the government have provided the network that's coming on the base. The $5 million from Congress is not about the network being installed. It's about the pilots to really unlock the power of the cellular, transformation on the bases. And so we're piloting in those 4 areas, and the funds from Congress is critical to that endeavor.
Well, I'll tell you, it warms my heart to see the teaming going on between CBP and the Navy. And it sounds like Naval X arrived on the scene at right the perfect timing to start to enable this very important capability. These vehicles, these drones, et cetera, they're like flying and rolling data centers at this point, right? I mean, it's just incredible. And this type of technology needs to be in place on a wide scale to enable that capability. Morgan, let's roll it over to you at CommScope. Give us a specific example, perhaps, that you're working with in one of the agencies that would be of interest to our listening audience.
Well, I think I'm going to go to a VA hospital that we're working with, actually, enabling coverage inside of the hospital itself. In the age of COVID, this is so critical that the communications be better than it ever has been before, not just for the people that are working in the hospital, but also for the people who are actually in the hospital and might be in desperate need while being so isolated. And we've been providing the basic coverage for cellular systems throughout the hospital in a more cost-effective and I'll call it easier to install way than ever before. This is particularly critical because hospitals are quite full right now. And so the amount of time you have to do installations and bring these sorts of things up is really minimized. And we think this is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of enabling these high need areas for basic cellular coverage, 5G coverage, and then bringing on lots and lots of devices.
Fantastic. A lot of capability there and great examples. Frank, let me ask you, you gave us touched on a lot of great examples of things that are going on at the Air Force. Can you pick one and just kind of tell us how that's really enabling that particular capability to happen?
I pick a little bit different than that, but I'll show you something. I'll tell you something else. I mean, we normally would have the bases ready to go now, but they're not there because of COVID. But let's take a particular thing. Let's talk about IoT sensors and things. Now, we're doing some small business innovation projects right now where they're actually fielding sensors to steam traps, which is kind of a stupid thing, but steam traps are all over the place on bases right now. And it can save millions of dollars by actually monitoring that IoT capability. And this is a new one because they don't need any energy. They get the energy off of the actual heat from the steam trap itself, as well as vibrations from motors, because they're doing motor health as well. But you have to understand, this is all part of the plan, is to have IoT sensors in a private 5G network. And that'll include the sensors that we're actually getting off of the aircraft as well, that we're trying to do as, part of the experiment we have at Hickam right now is how much information can we pull off all the aircraft that's coming in and actually use that in a closed 5G network to do analysis. And the analysis is going to be at the edge. As we talked about, everything has to be at the edge because actually two things. You can't transmit all this information someplace else because they'll bog down the network, but the people who need it are at the edge. And so if you look at it, the viewpoint of what we're trying to do is we're trying to develop authenticated sensor capabilities. So we know it's real, we know who it's coming from, and actually making data decisions at the edge with AI and ML capabilities for not only the aircraft maintenance, but also for the maintenance of the entire base. And that's what we're trying to get to very quickly. And we're trying to do the basics for the authentication of those sensors right now.
It's really impressive, you know, because all of a sudden you can just instrument almost anything, and you gave some great examples there, and then you can use this technology to sort of pull it together and make great use of it, whether it's maintenance or anything else in regards to that ecosystem. Randall, let's go over to you at Verizon. I know you probably have a lot of examples. We've talked about a couple already. Give us a specific program that you're working on that you'd like to highlight for the listening audience.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. Obviously, we're working with the Marine Corps and the Air Force. I don't want to leave the Army out in this whole ordeal here. So we're doing a lot with the healthcare community, with the U.S. Army and with the Navy. We're working in partnership with other large corporations to pull together solutions that you can have for a deployable hospital, no matter where it is, whether it's in the United States or globally. Those things are critical. We've seen this come around very quickly with COVID-19 and setting up pop-up clinics across the country, as well as setting up, let's say, some housing areas in the middle of the desert for folks returning from duty as well, and making sure that we're protecting them as they return to the U.S.
Really important, all of those examples. And again, just one after the other after the other. It's really impressive to hear this. Robert, how about at CBP? You talked about, the sort of setting this table for this sort of mesh wire fabric, as I like to call it there. Give us an example of a specific area that you're just going big on right now that you'd like to.
Sure, and I think Colonel Newell brought up some good points there. So it's all about partnerships right now across the federal government, and we're doing some really great work there. I think one of our big applications that's really going to benefit from 5G is the team awareness kit that was originally developed out of the Air Force Research Lab. And now we're deploying it to the U.S. Border Patrol, Air Marine Operations, and Office of Field Operations. It's essentially a blue force, red force tracking system, as well as giving sensor feeds and video feeds directly to the operators on their mobile platforms. So now we have to ingest a lot of data, and that could be coming from a lot of different platforms. It could be coming from radar systems. It could be coming from aerial drones. It could be coming from some of the Predator flights that we still fly. So we need to ingest all that data, and we heard a lot of good points here. Doing that processing on the edge where we can, and then backhauling the data back to some of our op centers or applications that need it. The operators are at the edge. Some of the other systems are in watch centers or in the Air Marine Operations Center out in Riverside. So we have to get the critical data back there. So we think 5G is really going to be a game changer there. Some of the other areas that we're doing a lot of work on is again on surveillance systems, whether it's on the border or within our own facilities as well. We have over 20,000 cameras deployed, sometimes many of them inside our facilities for safety. So we think that 5G will be another game changer there. So I think really the big project that we're really going to see it on is that team awareness kit that's been deployed with a great partnership with the U.S. Border Patrol, as well as our Commissioner's Office and Innovation team. That's really going to drive information down to the operators on their belt in real time. And you can't do that over the legacy networks. And you can't ingest the amount of data that you need to over the legacy cellular systems. So I really feel that's going to be the one project that's really a game changer across the board. And it's a huge safety increase as well for our operators if they can know what's going on around them, if they can get intelligence about operations, directly in real time. If the people back at headquarters can see what's going on, it's going to be a game changer for CBP, as well as interoperability and safety. Because that's something else that we have to do too. How can we share information, whether it's with ICE, whether it's with our other partners in DHS, or civil authorities, state and locals, as well as with DoD where it's appropriate.
Right, safety and productivity, both of those come into play, and you certainly have an incredibly mobile workforce there that's widespread and needs this kind of capability, sort of right on their hip, if you will. Stephen, how about over at Spirent? Can you give us an example of a specific program that you'd like to highlight?
Absolutely. I mentioned earlier something called the 5G digital twin, which is an emulated replica of the physical 5G networks, which are used as a flexible, repeatable testbed or even a cyber range for 5G security testing. And great work that we're doing with a consortium of government, academia, and the automotive sector around autonomous vehicles. This digital twin is being used to help accelerate research around how 5G connectivity will enable those connected vehicles to not only help reduce accidents and save lives, but also around transport efficiencies, and also how to make them more secure in case they come under potential threat or attack from an outside source. Now, obviously, the big challenge today is with testing on real roads for commercial vehicles or even with military vehicles in engagement environments is extremely limited. There is an associated risk potential. And to be honest, 5G networks are not yet universally available to get access to. So there was a clear need to be able to replicate not only the 5G network, but also the complex driving scenarios, the changing environmental conditions, unexpected events, whether it's in the commercial sector, like a pedestrian walking in front of the vehicle, whether it was in a military engagement environment, whether it was a soldier who was walking again potentially in front of this autonomous vehicle, in a sort of a safe and repeatable environment. And we've built with this consortium this combined digital twin environment with an advanced driving simulator to allow you to replicate both the real driving environments and the 5G network, and it's under your complete control. Now, the ambition here obviously is to not only reduce the amount of time and miles that you have to drive or test in physical real environments, but also to test all of those real complex what-if scenarios, which are difficult to do. And I mentioned security. It's difficult on an operational network to actually war game it, to be destructive on it. But in a digital twin replicant environment, you can do those types of testing and you can really understand where the risks are, but also where the mitigation opportunities are, because I think this is one of the powerful things that 5G sometimes gets overlooked. The network's capabilities itself are a great means of future defense. Its ability to adapt, its ability to set up network slices and that could become future quarantines is just huge opportunity. In fact, the best line of defense in 5G could be the network itself and how it actually adapts and behaves.
Sure. I mean, it's the ultimate smart network, right? Sam, how about over at GSA? In order to pull all this together, you have to be able to enable it, you have to be able to procure it, et cetera. Give us an example of where you're seeing some real progress in this area.
Right. So as a facilitator, we support government at every level. So not just at the federal level, but state and local as well. And cities in the world we live today have a lot on their plate, right? They're responsible for the first responder capabilities that are within their footprint. On top of that, they have to deal with education, transportation, you name it. And so we've been working very closely with various cities, but one in particular that's really paid dividends, I think, across the board has been working with the city of Las Vegas. They've deployed a full-on CBRS network across the city, which has enabled students that have now been learning from home to log into their virtual classrooms and provided access to students who are on the lower end of the socioeconomic ladder and may not have access to the internet for financial reasons. And then they've layered on other capabilities to that network, which have really truly been state of the art, where they've also enabled cross communication between their various departments, between the first responder community and transportation, et cetera. They've also been able to add smart interfaces into the network so that first responders don't have to go to an area if there's no traffic in that area, things of that nature. They can change their patrolling routines depending on areas that people are populating and other areas where people are kind of staying away from. So what we've done is we've not only made these capabilities available for the city of Las Vegas, But these offerings are available now cross-government for state and and federal entities as well, on EIS contract, on our multiple award schedules contract, with great pricing that they could leverage to gain efficiencies on the pricing and also access the technology rapidly.
Fantastic example of being able to enable, quite frankly, what sounded like a smart city to me. So that's outstanding. We're going to take another short break, and we'll be right back. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network.